Hello. I'm going to rank some Skyrim questlines. I'll just be ranking the faction questlines, or just the big ones. If there are some other quests that you do enjoy, then share those down in the comments below, because there are certainly a lot of good ones. These will be judged on my personal opinion of the plot, the theme, NPCs, weapons and armor, etc, etc. And there's going to be spoilers in this video, but the game came out in 2011, so... But if you really don't want spoilers, you can skip to this timecode at the end where you can see them ranked. For each questline, I will display the playtime, but just bear in mind that they are my own very rough estimations, and it would depend on a player's skill and their build and things like that. And I would also like to mention that repeatable and radiant quests don't count here, unless they're interwoven in or something like that. Okay, least to greatest in my opinion. Number 8, Civil War. This is probably the only one where it's given me real-life problems. Sometimes when I engage in small talk with someone, we find out that we both like Skyrim. We have a fun conversation about the game until they eventually ask, "So, who do you side with in the Civil War?" Then I sigh because this is where it goes downhill and we start to argue and debate, and they look at me like I'm some sort of monster. People, it's just a game. The Civil War in Skyrim isn't real. And newsflash, there is no clear side. Both sides are very corrupt and have their own problems, so don't act like you're taking the moral high ground, because there is none in this situation. They're both terrible. Say it with me everyone, both sides suck. Anyways, the questline isn't very good either. You'd think the war quest would be more exciting, but it's not. It's uncomfortable and it's very repetitive. It just doesn't really do anything interesting. There's a little bit of espionage, but it's not too exciting. There's plenty of glitches, which is annoying. And the war leaves you with destroyed cities that actually can't be fixed except through mods. So if you do decide to play through this, I would suggest doing it last. But then again, I also don't want this to be the last thing you experience in Skyrim. Number 7, College of Winterhold. So it's not great, but it's not necessarily bad, so I guess that makes it mediocre. It could have been more. I think the main problem can be boiled down to the fact that it's a quest line based entirely around spells, but you don't really need spells to play it. The reason for this is because just about all quests in Skyrim are built around the idea that you can play them no matter what your build is. And I honestly wouldn't even say I hate that, but because of its flexibility, you might lose sight of what this quest is supposed to be about. Because it would be nice if it forced the player to use certain spells throughout the playthrough, or at least teach you some spells, because for it being a wizard college, you certainly don't learn a lot of spells. And all around, this questline is just a little boring. The story is a forgettable story with mostly forgettable NPCs. There's not a lot of interesting enemies or dungeons. Again, mediocre describes it well. Although if you are planning on being a mage build, the Archmage's robes are probably a must-have. Number 6, Dragonborn. Now, I really want to clarify, I am judging the quest line, not the whole DLC, because the majority of the DLC is really awesome. But to separate the Dragonborn quest line from the rest, I don't think it's too great of a quest line. First off, it might be shorter than you remember. Probably because it drags on at parts, so it feels longer. And the concept I don't find too exciting. You essentially have to defeat the first Dragonborn, which kind of sounds interesting. The first Dragonborn versus the last Dragonborn. But I guess it just doesn't work for me, because Miraak seems all bark and no bite. Also, in this same DLC, we kind of got another Dragonborn versus Dragonborn with the Ebony Warrior, which, to be honest, is more of a challenge than Miraak. And the other NPCs, Neeloth is okay, but the Skull are just boring, and Hermaeus Mora might be my least favorite NPC in the whole game, because he talks extremely slow, and for some reason the game developers also decide to make it so that you can't skip his dialogue.
You cannot hope to surpass him.
Wonderful. Apocrypha is kind of cool, but it's far from my favorite setting. And I kind of dislike Nichardak as well. Mostly the only weapons and armor you get is Miraak's gear, and those aren't bad, both in their looks and their use. Look, even though I said a lot of negative things, this still isn't too bad of a quest. It's just not as great as I would like. Number 5, The Thieves Guild. It's good, but it falls down in some aspects. One of those aspects being the gameplay, because sneaking can be very fun and rewarding, but for me, sneaking mostly only feels fun with assassinations. And for most of this quest, the whole thing is that you can't kill anyone. And pickpocketing and lockpicking aren't really my thing either. But I can't say I hate all the gameplay because I still have fun. And this quest does shine in the story, though it's not the best. I mean, the truth is, some thieves in other books or movies have a purpose for the greater good, but thieves are just doing it for their own benefit. And that's really what the story is about. You're not tasked with doing a heist to save Skyrim or whatever. You're just cleaning up messes within the guild. And I wouldn't say that it's a requirement that all these quest lines have an impact on Skyrim, but it's just sad because it almost seems like Riften would be better off without the Thieves Guild. But with all that in consideration, there's still a lot of good stuff. The Nightingale armor looks awesome. As far as light armor goes, I think it's the most badass looking. And the sword and bow are cool too. And this questline has probably one of the most useful items in the game. The skeleton key is a must-have for me. And in case you didn't know, you don't have to return it. If you are going to be a thief build, the skeleton key, fences, and other things this questline provides will be very helpful. Number 4, the companions. It's strange because this is probably higher than it should be, but I put it here because this questline was really my first experience with Skyrim. In my first playthrough, I completed the companions questline before I completed the main one, and I think it's maybe designed that way. You get recruited very early, and it's probably one of the easier questlines, so it's great for beginners. And for those that take the warrior path, this is technically the warrior questline, so yeah, when I think of my early days in Skyrim, I think of this, and it makes me happy. But from a critical standpoint, it's a very simple questline, which can be a benefit, but mostly a criticism. The companions are all very one-dimensional. They are mighty warriors, and that's as far as their character development goes. And there's just not many exciting villains. It's mostly just a Silver Hand, which are even more underdeveloped than the companions. Not really any exciting locations except the headquarters, which I do like. You know, let's focus on the positives, because I do still like this questline. And you can't talk about this questline without mentioning that some of them are werewolves and you become a werewolf, which is awesome. I love the concept of werewolves, and it is fun to play as one. And they're pretty powerful, at least against regular bandits and enemies like that. And you get 100% disease resistance, so I find it a good idea to become a werewolf, even just for that bonus. Number 3, the Dark Brotherhood. Out of the two sneak-centered questlines, this is probably the better one. The main difference, as I mentioned, is that you actually get to assassinate people in this one. It's fun to follow someone around, lurking in the shadows until they're alone and you can strike. It makes you think about the situations you're put in because you can't just go in swinging your sword. As you can tell from their name, this is a morally challenging organization. I usually play as a morally good character, but even I like to join the dark side every now and again. And if you want to, you can take the secret option of killing them all, which is pretty cool that that's an option, and it's a fast way to get coin. But even with that aside, this questline is definitely great for the story, since it's one of the more intriguing ones, with many plot twists and just an actually good narrative. And even though most plot twists in any game are less exciting after a couple playthroughs, I still find the ones in the Dark Brotherhood thrilling, even if I know what's coming. And it does have a big impact on not just Skyrim, but even all of Tamriel. Elder Scrolls 6 is probably going to have to reference what happens. The NPCs are, well, look, they're all murderers, so it's not easy to trust them. Point proven with Astrid. She's a backstabber and she's dumb. And with Cicero, I know they purposefully made him an annoying character, but the thing about that is, he's annoying. The outfits are kind of cool, but it seems like more of a female armor since the male cowls don't have a mask for some reason, which makes you look less like a ninja and more like an executioner going through a phase. But the Blade of Woe is cool, and it would be good to mention that this questline is good for getting coin, though it's debatable if it's the best way to get rich. Still, all around, this is a great quest. Number 2, the main quest. This one probably had to be high on the list because it's the main plot of the game and Skyrim wouldn't have been as successful without it. Memes aside, this has to be one of the best openings to a game because it's already so intense. It's intriguing and it introduces you to the world at a very brisk pace. But what I also think is great about this questline is what is also true for the other questlines. Your goal is essentially to be the most badass at what you do, and the main questline is where you are the ultimate badass. Your destiny is to slay dragons and suck their souls to gain power. Like, what's a cooler character than that? Being the Dragonborn is awesome. And even though the questline isn't as varied as it could be, it changes things up more than the other ones, so you're not just doing the same thing over and over again. There's different dungeons, different enemies, and it takes you to many places, which is great for familiarizing yourself to the world's locations and people. And with more than one alliance, you get different perspectives. Now, I don't find the NPCs to be too great. Some aren't bad, like you do ally with a dragon. That's conceptually a cool character, but his dialogue is not great to engage in. Neither is Esbern's dialogue, and neither is Septimus Cygnus' dialogue. And then there are many characters that seem to have forgotten that you are the Dragonborn. The Greybeards give you respect at first, but then quickly scold you like a child. Delphine does not trust you to make your own decisions. Everyone is just so hell-bent in their own ways and opinions. But there are still plenty of good things in this questline. Technically, there's no armor or weapons that are associated with this quest, though the Dragonplate armor and weapons are essentially what it is. And in the theme of what I said earlier about being badass, you are wearing the bones of dragons. There's no armor more intimidating than that. The weapons are cool too. And really, the weapons of this questline are the shouts. They're really a staple of this game. And yeah, that's what this questline is. A staple of the game. Seizing your destiny and saving the world from dragons. Number 1, Dawnguard. I think this really is some of the best that Skyrim has to offer. You can join a group of vampire hunters to save the world from the bloodsuckers blotting out the sun, or you could join the vampires and... Look, maybe I should get my criticism out of the way. Joining the vampires isn't really worth it in my opinion, because both paths have nearly identical story beats, like there's actually not much of a difference. And joining the vampires brings plot holes and confusing character motivations that kind of ruins it for me. I think the best example is when you and Serana are discussing how to sneak into Castle Volkihar while you are inside Castle Volkihar. I don't want to dwell on it though, because really, none of that matters because you can just join the Dawnguard, and I think that story is really awesome. Plus, even if you still want to be a vampire lord, Serana can turn you into one after this questline is over, so it's a win-win. Being a vampire lord can be fun and has some genuinely good abilities, but it has some very big downsides. It's something I would recommend researching first. Still, I put this questline at number 1 because playing through the story as a vampire hunter is very cool. And you don't just take missions to go into caves and kill vampires. The diversity in this questline is very surprising. The enemies are a lot more varied than you think, and the locations are varied as well. Castle Volkihar and Fort Dawnguard are very cool. And the NPCs are good for the most part. A lot of Dawnguard members have interesting personalities. Isran may be a bit big-headed, but he is willing to humble himself if he has to. And I think that Serana might be my favorite character in the game, because it feels like she has more character development than anyone else in Skyrim. Being a vampire that joins the Dawnguard is interesting enough, but what is really great about her character is essentially that the reason she's betraying her father is because she has grown fond of the player. She's seen how humane I am and how kind I've been to her, and she grows to like me.
You will not touch him.
So yeah, her and the other characters fit the story very well and make it great. The armor and weapons of the Dawnguard are pretty sick. Maybe for some the armor is just too generic, but I really like it. Sometimes it's the simple things that look the best. And there's multiple options for weapons, with one being the crossbow, which is a cool addition. Ariel's bow is one of the best bows in the game. I also find Arvak to be my go-to horse. And if all of that doesn't convince you, Dawnguard has dogs. So, Alright, that's my ranking of Skyrim's biggest questlines. What's your ranking? Are there any quest rewards that make these worthwhile for you? What's your favorite follower from these factions? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching.